Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C, the $1 Million Show. And I want to thank everyone for tuning in every Monday through Friday, 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Charlton and Big C Sports. And bienvenidos to all of our growing Latin American audience also, and ESPN Deportes. And also you guys over in England, Berlin, as well as the great country of Canada, and of course, the United States. Today is May the 11th, 2016. And Big C, as you know, I keep hearing more and more about Bud Light and Moonshine Burgers. And I know you good old boys like both of them for a nice meal down south, Big C. What are your thoughts on that? Go ahead, Big C.
Bud Light. You need $1 million to be able to buy all that Bud Light and those burgers and everything. You know, you got to wash it down. Little
I understand, Big C. Little technical difficulties, but I think it's all cleared up. So, Big C, I know that we had so much happening in the world of sports, and I know how you like to be in Hollywood. Is that true?
Oh, Charlton, love it. You know, when you look at the guys who have crossed over from the playing field into the Hollywood and television, big screen, Charlton, you know, it's wonderful to see that athletes have more talent than just as an athlete.
Yeah. Well, I look at a guy like Terry Crews. I know he's one of the main guys that you talk about. He's an actor, but he also played football for the Rams, I believe, Big C?
Yes, he did. He went to Western Michigan University, Charlton. The Rams drafted him in 1991.
Yeah.
He played 6 years in the league, and when he got out of it, many people don't know he went to college on an acting scholarship.
Yeah.
So, you know, it was similar to the late Michael Clark Duncan, Charlton.
Yeah.
You know, he was a tremendous athlete, but he understood that there was more to life than just playing sports.
Yeah.
And he was able to, you know, move back to Los Angeles after his playing days were over with the Rams and get into acting. You know, he started in a show, Everybody Hates Chris.
Oh, yeah, that was narrated by Chris Rock, I believe.
Yes, it was, on Fox.
Yeah.
And he also played in this movie with the Wayans brothers, Charlton, called White Chicks.
Yeah.
You know, where he played a professional basketball player in that movie.
Yeah.
But he's really well known as a spokesperson for Old Spice commercials.
Yeah, I think he has too many muscles, though, Big C. He makes me feel a bit insecure when I watch him use his pecs every now and then. I used to have that in my 20s, but isn't he about 50 years old, Big C?
He's up there, Charlton, but every time I see him on those commercials, it makes me take off my shirt and walk away from the mirror.
Yeah.
You know?
And we know it's all clear, too. It's all clean. There's no extra juice in his moonshine, if you get what I'm saying, Big C.
Well, you know, he has that $1 million body, Charlton, when you look at athletes and former athletes. You know, he's done a tremendous job taking care of himself physically and mentally over the years, Charlton.
Yeah.
And it has played off in a successful career on the screen after getting off of the field.
Yeah, when you think about how hard it is to do that, and again, we go back and pay a lot of respect to the great Jim Brown, because he started, I guess he led the exodus of athletes that left the game in their prime.
Well, even Charlton, prior to Jim Brown, the great Woody Strode, not many people remember Woody Strode, but Woody Strode played in a lot of Western movies along with a lot of big-name Western athletes. You know, Lee Van Cleef, John Wayne, the list just goes on and on of the actors that he acted along with. And, you know, we talked about Woody Strode playing in college at UCLA along with the great Jackie Robinson. So he probably really was the trailblazer. Jim Brown came along after him, but Woody Strode was really the trailblazer, and especially for minority athletes, Charlton, leaving the playing field, the gridiron, and moving into the acting field.
Well, you know, we just talked about over the time that we've been on the program, we've had guys like Rosie Greer, we've had guys like Burt Reynolds, even you brought to my mind Lee Corso, who's on the ESPN Today Game Day. He also played in some movies, but he was a quarterback, I believe, at Florida State.
He was Burt Reynolds' quarterback at Florida State prior to becoming the head coach at Louisville and West Virginia, Charlton, as a head coach.
Yeah, and then Burt Reynolds in the great, I think his favorite role for me was when he played Smokey and the Bandit. The good old boys down south with that Pontiac Firebird Trans Am with the gold Firebird on top. I think he and Sally, I think it was Sally Richardson. She was his girlfriend.
Sally Fields.
Yeah, Sally Fields. Sally Fields, yeah, his girlfriend in the movie. And that moonshine with the great Jackie Gleason chasing them down south. That reminds me of what a lot of you guys do on vacation. Out here, people go to Disneyland, but I think you guys get moonshine and chase it from state to state, Big C. Is that what I hear?
Well, Burt Reynolds was auditioning to be a NASCAR driver in that movie. You know, that's what everybody in the South aspires to be, you know.
Yeah.
Drive fast and turn left, you know, and he was trying to do that. But he made a couple of right turns, so he got disqualified from any opportunity to run in NASCAR, Joe.
That's so funny, Big C. Well, actually, when you think about that, racing cars and cars that they soup them up to make them go a little bit faster. I always appreciate that. I know when I was growing up, a lot of guys would get their Camaros and their Trans Ams and they'd try to race them on the country roads. But obviously, it's nothing that's legal. So when you do that, make sure you drive safe. And speaking of driving safe, this segment is also sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealer, home of the all-new Escalade, the standard of the world. You can only get it there brand new, and when you go down and test drive it, make sure you tell them that Charlton and Big C sent you. Now, Big C, we know that we had the Kentucky Derby just over the past weekend. The ratings were actually down for television. I think a lot of that, Big C, is because people don't have to sit there with the Nielsen box anymore. A lot of people, they listen to podcasts, or they can have it on their phone where they don't have to be in front of a TV station. They can actually watch an event on their phone, Big C. Do you think that's changed in the way the world of sports is happening when they pull up ratings and seeing who's watching what, Big C?
The world of sports have been altered, Charlton. There's too many electronic devices that you have access to basically any event that you ever want to see at any place or any time in the world.
Yeah.
But also when you look at the Kentucky Derby, Charlton, the Kentucky Derby is an event. It's not where individuals sit at home alone and watch this.
Exactly.
This is where you have gatherings. You said it was a record crowd at Churchill Downs.
Yeah, 167,000.
Weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you have a record crowd at Churchill Downs, think about what the local bars and pubs and restaurants, Charlton, are doing.
Yeah. People
come together because the Kentucky Derby is a series of races. You know, it's between 12 and 14 races that they hold that day. And these races are broadcast, so you're not just seeing the signature race,
yeah.
You're seeing all these prelim races.
Yeah.
So that takes some time, and so you got people eating, you got people having some moonshine as the day goes on. So there's millions of dollars invested in libation and entertainment prior to the main event of the Kentucky Derby.
Now, Big C, you might think this is funny, but I told you when you started talking about the moonshine, because I had some relatives from the South also, and I know that a lot of guys, when they have a drink, they don't mean go down to the convenience store and get a Coors or a Bud Light. They actually go out to the barn and open up a big bucket of moonshine, right? But since you've been talking about that, I even heard, we mentioned it yesterday, Carl's Jr., they have the moonshine burger. Is that a coincidence? I mean, why is that happening all over the place? Moonshine milkshakes, moonshine drinks, and of course, a hamburger too, Big C?
Well, Charlton, we started talking about it a little over a month ago, and Carl's Jr. broke it out about 2 to 3 weeks ago. The moonshine burger. You know, there's a lot of things that we say on air that, ironically, we're hearing everywhere else, whether it's on ESPN, whether it's on Fox, whether it's on other talk shows on NBC, with sports shows, Dan Patrick shows.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that people are plagiarizing what we're doing, Charlton.
Yeah.
But it's a coincidence that within a week to 2 weeks, the things that we talk about on air are constantly being brought up on these network broadcasts that other people are using. You know, my 40-plus years of broadcasting, I've heard that on a pregame show.
Yeah.
You know, just many comments that we're getting that people are using. Now, everybody else has a research staff, you know.
Yeah.
My research staff is having a conversation with you.
Yeah.
You know, that's our research staff. So when you have your research staff listening, and we hit so many things that are poignant. I'm not patting ourselves on the back, but we are real talk, Charlton.
Yeah, I think
that's what our show is. It's real talk. And when people are skating around the fringes, and in the past they've been afraid to say what we actually say on the air.
Yeah.
But they plagiarize our talk. It's not our ideas, it's our talk.
Yeah.
And they try to make it seem like it's something that they originated, Charlton.
Yeah, I know
we've been the originators.
Well, I hear what you're saying. There's a lot of programs out there. I even hear radio stations in Northern California, some of the bigger ones out there that are actually, they're paying homage to Hollywood actors now. It's not just into sports. Some are actually playing clips from movies from some of the great actors. And I know that you know the Hollywood scene very well, and you have to pay homage to that. So, but congratulations, because I also love listening to people and learning from what other people are doing. But it's just ironic that sometimes you talk about things and then I hear it come up also, just like in the Olympics. You brought that up. We talked about it yesterday. Now they're talking about postponing it.
Down there.
Yeah, the health issues. I mean, is that something that would cost a lot of money? But this is the point. Is money more important than the health of these athletes? Not just because of the crime, but because of the virus that's going on in that region of the world. I know there's a lot of sponsors who have already bought hotels. They've already paid for accommodations. They've already paid salaries for a lot of people. Will that take a precedent over safety, Big C? What are your thoughts on that?
I honestly think it will take a precedence over safety. Money is what this is all about, Charlton, when you think about it. But, you know, you're putting lives, not just health, you're putting lives at risk, not just of the athletes, Charlton, you're putting lives of the fans who are going to be making their way to Rio to see this world event. And when you have the World Health Organization, Charlton, we're not talking about the medical clinic down at the end of the street, you know. Yeah. Where they put a Band-Aid and a little Neosporin on you and tell you everything is going to be okay.
Yeah.
We're talking about the world health leaders.
Yeah.
The most renowned, you know, people in the world that can deal with viruses and other health issues.
Yeah.
Saying that this is not a good idea for the world. But, you know, you have so much money invested by NBC and other networks saying, we're going to go down there. The health risk to the athletes and the fans, that's no concern to them.
Yeah.
It's about the bottom line dollar right now, Charlton. So if this Olympics does not get delayed, canceled, or moved, you'll know that the network and other people of that nature care less about the well-being of an athlete. We've seen that over the years when we look at, you know, we talked about a lot of college football where they don't pay the athletes to get free slave labor, and they make millions of dollars. This is the same thing we're looking at the athletes. You know, this is proposed amateur athletics.
Yeah.
Even though you have professionals participating in the games now, Charlton, what you're looking at now is how much money are we going to make or lose from our business and financial standpoint as a broadcast organization.
Yeah, I agree.
That's the only thing that matters right now.
Well, Brazilian soccer great, we mentioned it yesterday, Rivaldo is telling tourists stay away from the Olympics in Rio. This is a native of Brazil. And because we talked about some of the homicides that have happened, and oftentimes law enforcement is the target. It's not like it's, you know, gang members running around. They're blaming law enforcement is accused of at least 307 police killings last year. Now, I know we all want to go and celebrate the Olympics. We know that Coach Krzyzewski, he's going to coach the men's national team at the Olympics. But I just think at some point in time, this is where we talk about Donald Trump as kind of a bigoted opinion where he doesn't like certain groups that don't look like him. And I won't get into that aspect of it. But when you really have issues on the line, Big C, I think sometimes people boycott or people protest. Well, if you're an athlete or a pregnant woman or a wife of one of these athletes, do you really want to go down there when the health, your health is more of a concern than whether you win a gold medal or not? I think it's more than political, and I think it's something that athletes should take a stand and say, my safety is more important than my sponsorship, Big C. Maybe that's simplistic thinking, though.
Well, Charlton, that's the only way that you're going to put a stall to the Olympics in Rio is that the athletes stand up and unify and say, hey, we're not going to put ourselves in this peril. Now, you got to remember when the Olympics were voted on about a decade ago, Chicago was in the running.
Yeah.
And the reason for Chicago not getting it, people saying, was it was a crime-ridden city.
Chicago is a crime-ridden city?
Well, you know, but what have we heard about Rio? You know, we've always known about the high crime rate in Chicago. But that's nothing new.
Yeah.
But, you know, the one in Rio has been kind of swept under the rug. And when you're talking about the police department being the leader in homicides in the country, in Rio. And so if the police are the leader in homicides, not only that, when you have these unsanitary conditions, Charlton, that the bay down there where they're going to have the boat racing, you know, is totally contaminated, Charlton, with human feces and trash and other things. So how are the oarsmen going to go out there in this contaminated water because it's constantly splashing on them, Charlton? And they're going to have all of this contamination on them. You can't keep them clean or safe, Charlton.
I remember. I remember, Big C, there was a time in the San Francisco Bay, growing up in Northern California, I remember that there was a time where the bay actually had feces in the water because that's what they did. They pumped it in and thought that marine life would take care of it, or it would just float to the bottom of the bay on its own. But the city got behind cleaning up the bay, and now it's a lot cleaner, more sanitized place. And I think they have the money to do it. They have the money to do it everywhere. I just want to put the athletes first. And when you think of putting athletes first, this segment is also sponsored by your Northern California BMW dealer, home of the ultimate driving machine. Go down a test drive from the 1 Series all the way up to the flagship 7 Series, known as the M7, and also the 760 Li, over 600 horsepower of the ultimate driving machine. Now also, Big C, as we talk about Rio, we talk about the Olympics, before we get into some basketball, because I know Steph Curry, and we talked about it yesterday, the first time unanimous MVP in the NBA, I just think that's fantastic for Golden State, and they will play their game against Portland tonight at Oracle Arena over in Oakland. But just one point about the Super Bowl. I think they're granting the Super Bowl is going to be in Houston next year, and in two more years, I think they're going to play it in Minneapolis, Minnesota. But San Francisco, the city of San Francisco, they said they only netted $2 million from Super Bowl 50, and they were expecting $5 million. They said about 1 million people attended Super Bowl-related events in downtown San Francisco. I know because I was there for one of them, but I thought it was a great event, a windfall financially, but they're saying they only made nearly $2 million. They were expecting $5 million. Does that make any sense? Because it was one of the most watched Super Bowls in the history of the world, and San Francisco's always crowded anyway, but I don't know how you lose money when you have an extra 1 million people coming into the city, Big C.
Well, Charlton, when you think about it, it was the Golden Super Bowl, the 50th anniversary Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And so it was a signature game and a signature event. So when you're saying that you did not make the revenue that you expected to make, that's hard to believe because people want to be a part of history, Charlton.
Yeah.
And number 50 is not coming back. And any other Super Bowl is not coming back, but 50 being a golden anniversary, Charlton, Super Bowl, that's hard to walk past.
Yeah.
And so when you talk about these other cities, now San Francisco didn't make anybody. What is Minneapolis going to make, Charlton, in the middle of a blizzard?
Yeah.
You know, they had the Super Bowl there once before when the Washington Redskins and Buffalo Bills played.
Yeah.
Not the Washington Redskins, but yes, it was. It was the Buffalo Bills and Washington Redskins when they played in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
And you know, it was an ice bowl outside.
Yeah.
So any outside events, you know, maybe everybody was hanging out at the Mall of America in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
But, you know, there wasn't many outside events that you could go to, so everything had to be home to inside facilities, Charlton. So being in San Francisco, they had pristine weather that weekend. It's hard to believe that you had a shortfall financially and didn't reach your numbers.
Well, Mayor Ed Lee said he praised the numbers, saying the game was a major boost to the city of San Francisco and that Super Bowl 50 exceeded their expectations. He said that in a statement, but there were several supervisors that disagreed, saying the city barely broke even for the corporate party that clogged the city streets and hurt small business. So when you complain that you have a Super Bowl in town, I think that's just making a lot of excuses about maybe you didn't get the good old bribery money that you thought you'd get, maybe that you get in New York.
You know, they haven't talked about who was siphoning what yet. You know, that's the thing that they have to point out. Who was skimming off the top? I mean, if he said he had a $3 million shortfall, there's some people that found $3 million laying around someplace. Because how do you calculate that?
Yeah.
You know, you just got to say, okay, it was $2 million flat, period. That's it.
Right.
You know, a week-long event only netted us $2 million. You know, we came up $3 million short. But, you know, Jimmy, Joe, and John walked out and their pockets were fat.
Yeah.
And they got new cars. They got the new BMW. They got the new Lexus. They got the new F-150 Ford pickup.
Yeah.
But we don't know where this money went to, Charlton.
Yeah. It's like
by the way, the back of the pickup was full of Bud Light.
I think it was the Bud Light, but we all know they don't pay taxes on moonshine. I think that's where a lot of that money went, to moonshine in San Francisco with the, what's it called, Carl Jr. with the moonshine burger? We know where the money went, Big C.
But we know that $3 million somehow mysteriously didn't show up. Maybe somebody else send that $3 million to us, Charlton, but mysteriously $3 million didn't show up in San Francisco. How ironic in a city like that money comes up missing.
Yeah, I know politics. You know, they call Chicago the Windy City, but not because it's windy, but because of the politics, Big C. And so when you think about that, I just think it's funny. The mayor said, hey, we made a good profit. Some of the city council, they were like, hey, we didn't get our money. I think that's funny. And thinking of activity and last night's game, and I know we get on the officials all the time, and they're only going to do the best they can, Big C, because they're human.
Were they there at the game last night?
Well, I think they were there at the game because
they were there. They were there up until the last 10 seconds of the game. Okay, this is the second time, Charlton, during the series that the last 10 seconds of the game, I think the officials were sitting in the front row, not out on the court.
Hey, the officials said we didn't get our money, so what are you talking about? What officiating? We got to get. This is not college basketball. We're supposed to get paid. But when you talk about getting paid, I just want to bring this up too because we know we talked about how great Steph Curry is and how great the NBA is. But last night, when I look at a guy like Russell Westbrook, he took over this game because he's dominant. I saw him play in person when he came to Sacramento, and he's such an aggressive athlete. And I know sometimes he shoots the ball too much. There are times that he should actually back out and give the ball out to Durant.
Oh, you saying he's like the former great Mamba?
Oh, he is. But last night, Big C, this guy is the reason that they're up because, like he said, he doesn't stop until he hears a whistle. Kawhi Leonard did grab him. In fact, I thought he was playing football. He grabbed him so hard. But the official said, hey, I'm not getting my money. I'm not calling the foul. But that's just my cynicism. But he went to the line and he went to the hole, made the basket, and got the basket and the foul. Just your thoughts on Russell Westbrook, Big C. He dominated that game last night.
Well, let's start with the officials. They get paid each game that they officiate in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So if they get an extra game in, they get an extra paycheck. But Russell Westbrook, we've talked about him every game and every week and just about every show.
Yeah.
You know, he's a better version of a Derrick Rose pre-injury.
Yeah.
When Derrick Rose was the league's MVP about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But Russell Westbrook is a consummate athlete. He can play football. He can play baseball. I would like to see him out there run a little track and field with the speed that he has. So.
Oh, he's very fast. In fact, there was a time when he took on Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi was going to the basket, pretty much brought it up from half court. Westbrook chased him down from the outside, and the only reason he didn't block his shot is because Kawhi is a skilled enough offensive player to go in with his left hand. But again, you talk about activity and athleticism. Last night, Dwight Howard was filling in for, I think, Shaquille O'Neal on TNT with Charles Barkley, Kenny the Jet Smith. And I think they were at an award show where the great Vern Lindquist got a Lifetime Achievement Award, so congratulations for that. But Dwight Howard, Charles Barkley, in an awkward moment said, why don't people like you? Now, Dwight says, no, everybody's not going to like you anyway. But what they were really trying to say is, why don't you hustle the way Westbrook does? But they didn't know how to say it, so they said some people don't like you. And he's a great athlete, Big C. He's a great player, but you can see he doesn't have the tenacity that a Russell Westbrook has. Do you agree with that at all, Big C?
Well, you know, 5 years ago, Dwight Howard was one of the top 5 players in the NBA, Charlton.
Yeah.
But when he left Orlando, Charlton, and he came to Los Angeles, he ended up with the back injury.
Yeah.
And he just couldn't fit in at another organization. You know, he was almost starstruck when he came to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
You know, Dwight Howard now is on the downside of his career. And I know he made the comment last night that he can't play with James Harden.
Because James won't pass the ball.
well, one of them will not be in Houston next year.
James Harden was taking a nap on the last game when they got beat in the playoff series. He took a nap at the corner of the floor. And I like him as a shooter, but defensively he's a liability. And he doesn't have that same thing we saw in Westbrook where you see it in Steph Curry. You saw it in Michael Jordan. And who are we to sit up and tell some guy's making $25 million a year that he should work harder because he's got the money? I wish I had $25 million. But when you see it on the floor, and I saw it in Westbrook, who even told Durant, look, I'm taking over this game because Durant was kind of sucking up air. But this kid, maybe he was on that good old Oklahoma, good old boy moonshine too, Big C. But
he may have a slip out there,
I'm sure they got a nice big old bucket in the back. It's not Gatorade. But I'm so impressed with him. And I think that's what Barkley was trying to get out of Dwight Howard. Why don't you play like that guy? And I just think Dwight Howard you know, a lot of guys, when they get a lot of money, they don't have the fire anymore because they want to stay healthy, Big C. Maybe that's my ignorance saying that.
Well, you know, he's never been a great shot, Charlton. I mean, if he's not in the paint, he's generally not going to score.
Yeah.
But, you know, he could become like a Dennis Rodman.
Mm-hmm.
Dennis Rodman could go out and get you 10, 12, 14 points a night and turn around, he has 20 rebounds.
Yeah.
Also, Ben Wallace played that similar role, and he was a similar size to Dwight Howard. He ended his career with the Detroit Pistons, where Wallace was always in the double digits in rebounds and double digits in points. Now, he was the best defensive center in the NBA for a decade.
Yeah.
But his game has waned a lot, Charlton, and that's what these other former players were trying to get out of. What does it take, or what would it take to motivate you?
Money?
To become that player that we always expected that you would be. $27 million a year is not doing it.
How about $100 million?
So what's the problem with Dwight Howard? Why isn't Dwight Howard the dominant fixture in the post in the NBA that everybody's been looking for and expecting for the past decade, Charles?
Well, you know something, Big C? We talked about Bill Walton, how he had that book that came out, and how big guys, they get a lot of injuries. They don't always want to come out and tell you, but they can get injuries too. But we looked at baseball. Steven Strasburg, which hasn't won a playoff game, hasn't won 20 games, gets, $175 million to pitch
over
for
7 years.
Over 7 years, and he's not worth it based on numbers. If it's based on your perception, I mean, if you get guys drunk and these owners get drunk before they start signing contracts, you're going to give people $100 million.
Well, Charlton, I really wouldn't say that they were getting drunk. Now, they might have been hanging out with Jim Irsay, okay, or Robert Irsay, whichever one.
Yeah.
You know, it could have been an Oxycontin party.
It could have been Oxycontin
party. You don't
party.
have all your faculties.
Well, I
And
think,
to give somebody $175 million who's never won 20 games,
yeah,
you know, who's never won a Cy Young, who's never won a playoff game, who's never hit a home run, you know, you have to question what is the criteria
yeah,
for a baseball player to get paid. Now, we talked about Big Papi yesterday, who's supposed to be retiring from the Boston Red Sox at 40 at the end of this season. Big Papi's having an MVP season, John.
Amazing.
He's second in the league in RBIs. He's second in the American League in home runs.
Yeah.
Now, when you look at statistics like that, he's carrying the Boston Red Sox on his back.
yeah,
Now, if Steven Strasburg, not an everyday player, to get 7 years, $175 million versus Big Papi, who is an everyday player who doesn't make $20 million, there's a disproportional parity in baseball when it comes to who gets paid and who doesn't. And there's a minority difference in the two, Charlton. I got to point that out. Steven Strasburg is like these potential NFL great quarterbacks that's supposed to be saving franchises.
yeah.
He's 6'7", he's blonde hair, blue eyes, and supposed to have a rocket arm. Even though he can't strike anybody out anymore, he doesn't have the control to get the ball over the plate.
Right.
But you got Big Papi, a minority, who is doing all of what you expect of him, and he doesn't get a contract extension or renewal. That reminds me, you know, Charlton, we talked about these quarterbacks, and I look at the kid out of North Dakota.
Yeah.
Okay?
Carson Wentz.
Talked about his versatility, Wentz. Talked about his versatility and his foot speed. Now, I'm going to take you back a couple of years ago when Florida State won the national championship, Charlton.
Yeah.
There was a quarterback that played for Auburn. His name was Nick Marshall.
Yeah.
Had two of the greatest plays in college football history, Charlton, throwing the football.
Yeah.
He threw a touchdown against Georgia that allowed them to win the SEC championship, Charlton.
I remember that.
He threw another touchdown pass against Alabama that allowed them to get the game to overtime, Charlton.
Yeah.
Okay? So Nick Marshall ran the same offense that Carson Wentz ran in college at the University of Auburn, SEC school, Charlton. Toughest conference in the country.
Yeah. Outside of the Pac-12. Outside of the Pac-12.
So there's 12 other teams somewhere that's playing college football?
Yeah.
Okay.
On the Pacific Coast, Big C. You'll see when USC knocks off the good old boys at Alabama coming up in the Kickoff Classic.
You know, that horse that didn't win the Kentucky Derby, that's the one that they'll be riding back to California, Charles.
The Trojan horse will invade the great state of Texas.
You know, so, but when you look at comparing it and you say that a quarterback is NFL ready.
Yeah.
Now, Nick Marshall did everything that Carson Wentz did.
Yeah.
And did more than Jared Goff.
Yeah.
But he couldn't get drafted as a quarterback 2 years ago in the NFL, Charlton. So I'm trying to find out where's the parallel when you say that a guy is NFL ready.
Yeah.
When you can beat all of the SEC as a starting quarterback.
Yeah.
But You can't beat the Pac-12, and in 3 years in college, you can only win 14 games.
Yeah, but see, Big C, the problem with you good old boys just down south is you guys care about who wins. Out here on the West Coast, they care about you liking who they want you to like, and that's the difference. Okay, so don't be a player hater.
So in other words, on the West Coast, and that's where Gary Goff got drafted and played college football.
Exactly.
Your acceptance of a loser.
Yeah,
it's okay.
hey.
It's okay. Well, he has potential.
Hey, what they say is perception is everything, Big C. Perception is everything.
Is it perception and potential, the double P? Is that what it is?
I think that's what it is.
So in the end, if he don't make it and peter out, so now we got the triple P.
It'll be the triple P. And speaking of the triple P, this segment is also sponsored by your Northern California Ford dealer, home of the all-new F-150. They build it for it tough. And when you go down and test drive it, tell them that Charlton and Big C sent you. Also by Beneath His Wings Foundation to support or donate. Go to bhwf.org. Contact Cynthia Evans at CYNN Entertainment for promotions and entertainment. She's the best in Northern California. Big C, in the last few minutes of the program, I know we talked about NFL football, and we talked about some NBA basketball. We have the Warriors playing Portland tonight over in the Oracle Coliseum in Oakland. But I also want to bring up something that we talked about, too, because even the mayor of Las Vegas is saying that they want to get NFL football to come to Las Vegas. And this final segment is sponsored by United Labor, guaranteed $100,000 life insurance policy. Tweet out for Charlton and Big C for details. Also by Goosehead, PNC Insurance, guaranteed to save you money on property and casualty. In the last 2 minutes of the program, Big C, we know Mark Davis is talking about taking the Raiders to Las Vegas. Even Jerry Jones has chipped in and said Las Vegas would be a good place for NFL football. Do they know it's 115 degrees in Las Vegas, Big C, in the summertime?
Let me tell you, see, Jerry Jones is from Arkansas and Oklahoma, so he's known to tip the moonshine up here.
You say Jerry Jones with the moonshine?
but when you have the millions of dollars that he has, he can pass it off as tequila. Okay?
Yeah.
And evidently he was drinking some of it when he made that statement, Charlton, because no one understands, unless you live in Las Vegas, what the heat factor is and the unsafetyness of this heat factor, Charlton, that you have in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
UNLV, the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, only practices at night down there, Charlton.
Yeah.
And they don't play a day football game until the end of October during the football season because the heat is too catastrophic to play. Now, if you're down there in training camp starts in the NFL in July.
Yeah.
So you're talking about days, Charlton, between 110 and 122 degrees.
Yeah.
You know, how many heat-related illnesses and deaths will you have to an NFL team if you take an NFL team down there and play? Now, people forget the Arizona Cardinals left St. Louis and went to Arizona and played at Sun Devil Stadium over a decade ago.
Yeah.
Now, it got to the point where they were only drawing about 25,000, 30,000 fans.
Yeah, it was too hot.
Because of the heat factor in this 78,000-seat stadium. After their first season there in Arizona, you're not winning. That honeymoon was over.
Yeah.
But no one wanted to sit in the stadium down in Tempe, Arizona, with the outside temperature being in triple digits, trying to watch a football game. As a fan, you sit up in the stand and get heat stroke. And Las Vegas is a lot hotter than Tempe, Arizona, Charlton. So this is an asinine idea of talking about taking an NFL team to Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Number one, Charlton, gambling.
Yeah.
Okay? Gambling.
You say they gamble in Las Vegas, Big C?
You cannot put a professional organization in a city that a professional gambling organizations are going to have access to. The NFL has fought hard to control player activity off the field.
Yeah.
Now, if you put them in the gambling mecca of the world, you're going to have some games with some odd scenarios that would occur.
Even more obvious than we see nowadays, Big C.
Even more obvious with the human factor. Okay, I'm only getting paid $780,000 this year. Now I can make $500,000 this week.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm human. I gotta consider that. Okay, I gotta consider that. Nobody's worried about Roger Goodell in that situation.
Yeah.
If there's $500,000 to $1 million put on the table, make this happen,
yeah,
you're going to see some odd outcomes in Las Vegas, Charlton.
well, speaking of odd outcomes, when it comes to $500,000 or $100 million, I'll take the $100 million, Big C, and you can also take the $100 million every Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time worldwide on Charlton and Big C Sports. We want to bring it to you real straight and let you enjoy everything that you don't hear on other broadcast programs. So we always want to tell you every time that you listen to us, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope you have a super fantastic day.